Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this new podcast about circular economy. These podcasts are organized by Project Tellus, Rethinking Tourism. This is a project that's partially funded by EEA Grants Portugal. And today we have with us Cristina Gerlach with her project A Abelha Verde. Welcome, Cristina. Thank you so much for being with us, for accepting our invitation. We're very curious about your project. And do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Laura. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for having me here. It feels like a great achievement to be able to talk about a little project I started as a hobby, that it's slowly growing. I would say people say it's a business. I would say it's like a homemade project to help others do little changes in their home. So basically, I'm the creator per se of Abelha Verde. It's a line of beeswax wraps. So they're to substitute cling wrap in the kitchen. So they're fabrics that are covered in wax that you can use to wrap fruits and veggies and carry snacks. You can even wrap flowers around it. So I will tell you about all the uses that can be done with it. And it was born from mostly, I would say, the need for change in my home personally. It started as an idea that I did with friends 4 years ago. I was living in Barcelona and we always would meet to do new things at home, to reuse things like cans and crafts. And one was, why don't we make beeswax wraps? We had seen it online somewhere in the magic world of the internet and zero waste. And we realized it was relatively easy to make. So if, guys, you haven't seen wraps, they are basically like pieces of fabric like this. So they are coated. I don't know if you can see it in wax, right? They have resin, they have oils as well to keep food safe and longer. So we went in Barcelona, we went basically to a pharmacy and we got a block of beeswax, which you can find. And we went to a textile shop. So we bought fabrics for it. It has to be cotton because it will absorb the wax better. And we got home, we made them, ups and down. If you ever have created a project at home, you will know sometimes it works, sometimes it takes more than one try. Funny to say is that I still have those wraps 4 years later at home. So they are meant to last a year, but you can refurbish them. And that's one of the beauties of this project that I like, is that it's something created at home to, one, target issues of waste. I think nowadays when we see the data of the circular economy and the world in general, especially now with the information and the importance that the EU and the world is given to sustainability, you see like a third of our food goes to waste. That is insane, right?
Yeah.
And why does it happen? Missed storage. We usually put it in the back of our fridge. We wrap it in cling wrap or in foil, in aluminium, and then you find it and it's rotten, weeks later. So that happens. What happens to that waste? It goes to landfills most of the time. What happens to that? That becomes metano, right? Gas metano, methane, which contributes to the green gases. So it's all a cycle that it can be avoided. So one, food waste. How do we do it? Let's have materials at home that keep our food longer, like avocados. I think most people love avocados. They ripen a day, right? Or so.
Yes.
So wraps are actually pretty good. I try not to eat too many avocados. Depends on where they're coming from. Remember, they do take a lot of water to grow. So in consumption and moderation. But if you wrap it with one of the wraps, it can last up to a week in your fridge, which is
really cool.
Pretty surprising, because the material lets us breathe, right? It's fabric. It has sort of a protective film, but because it also has oil, it has jojoba oil, it protects it from bacteria. So in that way, you're saving your food for longer. Second issue that it targets at home, it's the use of plastic. I mean, we know nowadays that plastic has become a bit of the enemy, it feels. I think it's something that has to be balanced. Certain plastics are good, certain plastics are needed, but many can be reduced. It's one of the important R's that we have in the circular economy nowadays, right? To reduce the amount of things we have. For example, with cling wrap, I think I'm sharing the screen so I can just show you very quickly, we are on the Abelha Verde, which is my Instagram. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But for example, National Geographic did a very interesting article on plastic wrap and the problems of it. You know, one of it being the amount of wraps that goes into landfills.
Because it's kind of single use. I remember trying to
Correct.
reuse cling film, and it's near impossible because it just gets tangled up and you can't stretch it out again.
You can stretch it, you can hardly wash it.
Yeah.
So it's really hard unless you use it just to cover one thing. I mean, at home, when I have been given by my neighbors sort of like a dish or food and it comes in wrap, if it's clean, I try to keep it. So, you know, I think my friends laugh that I'm a step from being a hoarder, which I'm not. I just like to use things. But the thing with cling wrap is you cannot recycle. It's almost impossible to recycle. It breaks down. So it contributes to a lot of the pollutions. I know we've all seen the images of the turtles and the fish in the sea with the plastic bags. Cling wrap also contributes to that plastic pollution in the environment. And the amount of use of plastic wrap, it's sort of shocking. Like the statistics show, just to give you a number that to me was a bit like, wow. In the US, 2020, about 5.3 million Americans use 10 rolls of wrap a year. Let's see, a roll is 20 meters.
Yeah.
20 meters, 10 times, that's 200 meters,
Yeah.
no? By
Times
5.3 million, that's
yeah.
about 1.6 billion meters of plastic wraps
That's
that go to
ridiculous.
waste. Yeah, so I know it sounds crazy. This little change can help you prevent that. You know, you won't have to buy the cling wrap. You save in money. You have a one investment that you can do. Let's see you use yours as much and it lasts 1 year. Okay, you can get another one next year. You can make them at home. There's tons of YouTube videos of how to make them. That's how I started, basically, thanks to the wonderful internet. You can reuse and refurbish them. So another thing I'm doing now for them is I don't want it to be a product that you buy once and then that's it. I want to show people how to reuse them or give them second lives or how to keep them longer. So I'm also making bars of the materials that basically go in it.
So you can melt it, you can wax it again.
Exactly, you re-wax it. You can sort of like grate it on top, put it in the oven, 20 seconds, and it will reabsorb because it's fabric, right? It's like an old t-shirt. So in that sense, you can keep having them in your kitchen and you don't have to be part of this, 1.6 billion meters of cling wrap that.
And not only that, but the all the emissions that are and the energy that is used to make the cling wrap.
And the materials.
Yes,
right? Many of them are chemicals that are used for it. So
absolutely.
In that sense, that's one of the main ideas, to reduce plastic in the kitchen, plastic wraps. Right. A second thing about my project with Abelha Verde is that the fabrics, as I mentioned, the first time I made them, I went to a fabric store and I bought cotton, 100% organic cotton. But I realized that I didn't want to be part of having to buy a new product to make a product. So this is where I think it really enter the idea of the circular economy, right? Not the linear, like you buy a new, which comes from a raw material. I mean, cotton takes so much to be made between the raw materials, the dyes, when they use them, the water that is used for creating it. So I thought, well, all that has been done already. There is plenty of fabrics in the world that are not being used.
So in terms of process, you're actually reusing fabric.
Correct. So what I do is that I have purchased. I went to, for example, I live in Portugal and outside Lisbon, not Lisbon anymore, but I was in Lisbon at the time. And I went to a store, which I believe is an association, Emmaus, if anyone has heard about it. It's French originally, but there's one outside Lisbon in Canesas, if I'm pronouncing that properly. And they have a section for textiles and clothing. And they have piles of
course,
sheets, cotton, textile that was for industry that was not used. So I thought this can be a great source of it. of course, you always think of the hygiene. This is something that is going to be in your kitchen. I had to think about it twice, but I thought this is fabrics that haven't been used that much. People didn't want to put them in waste. So they were donated basically to the association. And I bought, I think I walked that with probably 30 kilos
Oh, wow.
of fabric. And it was wonderful because it gave me a variety of fabrics that are pretty, are colorful, and can have a second life. So one thing about the wraps, I think they're very unique because
Yeah.
I mean, from one big sheet, I can make certain amount of quantities of wraps, but I will not be able to ever make it again unless I
Yes.
find that fabric again, which is very odd.
So everyone is unique.
Exactly. So every wrap is sort of like, the one wrap is not the one fabric that you pick
Mass
off the
produced.
website
Yeah.
to do. Exactly. So, and that is targeting another of the issues that was worrying me here in Portugal, for example, when it comes to textile. I mean, now I love to see that there's a great development in all the fashion industry, right? Like I think there's great movement about moving into slow fashion
Yeah.
and away from the fast buy. But I was also looking at numbers here in Portugal, which were shocking because I found out, like, for example, 4% of waste in Portugal that goes into the residuos urbanos, the
See.
ones that cannot be recycled.
Yeah.
4% of it is textile. So most people don't know what to do with textile, right? Once you have them. That is about 200, not two, yeah, 200,000 tons
Wow.
of fabrics in
Yeah.
Portugal alone.
Yes, that's just Portugal, tiny country.
That's just Portugal, exactly. So the EU right now with the green agreements, they are putting more effort into reducing this. And I found a lot of projects that are linking entrepreneurs with big companies that want to use those fabrics. So I know here in Portugal, there are projects, there's people who make new outfits, they make clothing, they new tote bags out of the scraps per se. And that's
Okay.
sort of the idea with the wraps as well, that is giving a second life to something to not end up in
Yeah.
trash.
Yeah. It's one of the R's of circular economy.
Correct.
Reuse.
So
Yeah.
reuse, exactly, which is not
Or
recycle.
repurpose, because that's
correct.
what you're doing, which is you're extending the life of the product, of the material, by giving it a new purpose. It's not going to be to like wear, but it's going to have
Exactly.
another life. Yeah.
Yes. And another thing that can be repurposed with the wraps is, like I said, they do have a life, right? At the end of a time, it's still fabric, it's still organic materials are using it. So what can you do when it's over? When you can no longer, even if you refurbish at certain times, like I have one specific in my fridge that it's only for Parmesan cheese. Why?
Oh,
Because Parmesan cheese has a
that
smell.
smell,
So
of course.
that's the one that keeps the Parmesan cheese. But at the end of 2 years, it does smell too strong. So what can I do with it? Well, they can be composted. I know that compost is not a possibility that everyone has.
It's becoming easier, but still, there's a lot of information needed. Yeah.
Correct. So that opens a whole other window, which is great too, which is, how do we become political in our actions? Like, can we be part of the change? I know where I lived in Campoliden is when they had created one of the first urban compost programs for the freguesia, and they were providing a community compost. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought, well,
Yeah.
that's
There are a
great.
few community composts in Lisbon. Yeah, absolutely.
And they have opened more, so I think that's something that is changing. So it's great that you are aware of what can go, and little changes like, oh, I have this and I would like to be part of the compost. It might lead you to move into a change of events of more things happening for zero waste. So they can be composted. Of course, they have to be cut small because they are cotton. Other fabrics won't absorb as well. So the fabrics that I have got that are secondhand are cotton. Or you can use it for many other things. For example, at home, I have a lot of plants. So I actually have cut them, if you allow me here. I have cut them into straps or the pieces that did not come up too well little stripes, and I use them as tutores, like the ones that
Tutors,
hold
yeah,
the
the
plants,
leads. Yep.
leads for plants. I also use them for drying flowers in my hat. It's like if it was thread,
Yep.
you roll it and you use it as thread.
As thread, yes, absolutely.
They are great fire starters.
Oh, because they have the wax and the oil, of
They have
course.
the wax and their fabric. So if you are, within your permission and the times and the places that you have to do a barbecue, I know here you can take a few and you roll them and they work great. So the idea is to keep giving them a new life until you cannot.
And they can be decorative as well. I mean, I'm thinking if you want to like tie the napkin at the dinner table, it can serve as those little loops. Yeah.
Yes, I have a good friend in Australia, which she has a big company for beeswax. I mean, her company is what you aim to be in the future. Like she has it with her partner. It's big. They even have solar power ovens that are the ones that melt the wax. They cultivate. They have their own bee hives. So they are great inspiration. And I remember in one market they had little figurines made out of the stripes. So they rolled them and they use them like if they were clay, so even for kids, you can like play with them. So, I think imagination or creativity
is the limit. Yeah.
Exactly. So, providing them more lives than just being a wrap it's one of the things that I want to do with the wraps. I want to portray to people when they buy one or they make one, not to just be a wrap to put on top of your bowl.
Yeah, absolutely.
Many lives.
Yeah. All right. So I'm curious about the process. Do you do this at home? How is this done?
Yes. So it started as a 2 people process. My aunt was with me and she was helping me, but it's basically me. It's at home. It's literally when it comes with a stamp that says homemade, it's because I'm sitting in my dining room and this is where it all happens, between the dining room and the kitchen. So I buy the fabrics, I wash them. That's one of the things, for example, with the circular economy, I think the 3 parts that you have to pay attention is the operations one, right? How you create the product.
Yeah.
So within the operations, where is your chain of events? I buy the fabrics for secondhand. The bee wax I actually get from a local beekeeper in my area, closer to Coimbra. So it's basically a second material, let's say.
Secondary material, yeah.
Secondary material, yeah. They have the honey and then they have the wax. So I buy the wax directly from him. The resin, it has pine resin. I made sure is Portuguese, so it's not traveling many kilometers to get here. It's from a small company, 2 brothers that have organic pine resin. So I did research to make sure to try to have the best, in the change of supply. And the jojoba oil that you cannot find made in Portugal, but I got it. The closest I could get it was from France. So that gets shipped here to do. So I make those, mix them. Basically, I got secondhand is my favorite thing to do. So I got old pots, secondhand pots, where I create a double burner, right? To melt all the wax, basically. It's a very simple, it feels like alchemy, to be honest, when you make it, because you just bring all this separate parts into a oil and you coat the fabric and then it goes into the oven. So within my production, I also plan, for example, the days I'm going to make wraps, the oven's going to be on. What else needs to go in the oven that day? So usually cake and quiche are the recipes that are waiting to be baked, because you have to have the oven running. So you might as well give it a second use, right?
Yeah, of course.
And then they dry very quick, and then they go into packaging. So the packaging also takes place here.
I've seen some of your packaging. It looks amazing, and it's really handmade.
So literally, I purchased the bags. They are paper bags, craft bags. So the idea is that
sorry to cut you off. Do you have any photos on your Instagram? I think you do, of the packaging.
I think, let me see. I'm sharing the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember.
Here, there's one here. I think it can open bigger. There. So there you go. You can see it better. The packaging, it's all paper. It's craft paper. Um, I had the stamps made in Lisbon in a local, I don't remember the name in
Stamp
Portuguese,
shop,
but
yeah.
that shop exactly. Like my dad designed the logo. I wrote the text, and I literally sit here in my table and do stamp days, which is great for one arm to work, in which I just stamp every bag.
Oh,
And
wow.
then the idea is that the bag, then you can use it if you go by bulk, a granel.
Yeah.
You can take it with you and give it a second life, or you can at home, the ones, for example, as I said, practice and error. There's plenty of bags that the stamps did not come up well. What do you do with those? So they go to be shredded, and I make new paper with it at home. I like to have paper, so it's also a very simple process that I recommend everyone if you want to do crafts at home to make paper at home. So I keep those for that, but you can use it for any other use. And then the stripe that comes with it in the front, it's actually when I cut the fabrics, when I get them, the edges usually need to be trimmed. The sizes are never perfect. So I decided to keep all those
Of
sort
course.
of
And you
ends,
use them
and I tie it up with that. Yeah, correct. And then you can use it for anything else. Wrap
to
gifts if
tie
you want to
anything.
make
Yes.
something at home. You can keep giving them lives. Why not? So that's the whole idea, that everything can be given a second life within
And
the wraps.
and how long have you been doing this?
Well, this is one of the great babies of the pandemic
Of
because,
course.
yes, as I mentioned, I made my first wraps 4 years ago in Barcelona, but I hadn't really done them. I make them again, and during the pandemics, my work, I usually work with tourism, has been very stuffed. So I thought, let's give it a try. Let's do something I like that could give me a bit of an income. I mean, I is not a huge business. I cannot depend on it, but it gives me enough. And I said it gave me sanity throughout the pandemic, because once
Very important.
I made back the main profit, which wasn't much, because as I said, I tried to look for things that were not, new or had to be shipped from far. So once I made back the investment, I said, okay, I'm even. Now from now on, I win, and it gives me something to do, which is great,
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
Insanity is
officially,
it's
oh my God, I think it's the best price, the best reward I'm getting from them. So I started in December. I think that's when I officially launched them, last December 2020.
and in terms of what was the biggest success, like the moment where you said, wow, this is actually worth it.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be money, but the biggest success, that the thing that you perceive as success with this project.
Moment, yes, to me was like, I have to be honest, the part that scared me the most about starting a small business was, how do you put it out, like, besides the typical, you have to love your friends and family, you put it out and all your friends and family say, I'll buy one. I said, perfect, and you're all going to love them because you know me. So how do I really get this out to people out, beyond my circle, which I'm very grateful for. But so I went out of my comfort zone, and I actually reached out to a couple influencers, I'm going to say, on Instagram, that I admire for the work they're doing regarding sustainability. So there's one specific persona, girl, Hero to Zero. If she listens,
Oh, of course, I know her.
She knows Anna. Yes,
Yes, Anna.
She's doing the raincoats as well, from
Yeah.
recycled materials, from umbrellas,
And she was the one talking about dumpster diving in Portugal and food waste as well.
Correct. So, I was one of those. I said, look, this is a long shot. I wrote to her and said, I hope, this is not, taking too much, is not intruding. I was wondering if you would be interested in having some of these wraps, because I also know that a lot of companies send her materials and things.
Absolutely.
And that's when another topic comes, the greenwashing, right? Like brands that are just put a panda and they pretend they're green and they want to be exposed. So I said, look, if you already have wraps, feel free to say no, because there's, if you want more, that's great. But and if you like them and you want to share it, go ahead. If not, I'm just happy that you have them. And she was actually a soul, and she put a little story on her Instagram with it. And I actually got I think within a day. I know it's not much, but I got like 150 new followers
Oh, that's a
in 24
lot for a
hours.
small business. It's a
I
lot.
was, you could see me like shining in my living room. So that to me was a huge step, because I also, I noticed that it went out to a lot of people that are interested in this, but also to people who might not know about it, like
Yeah.
that, like other topics within sustainability, but didn't know this topic. So that to me was a great stepping stone to
All
have.
right. Well, that's really good to hear.
Yeah.
Cooperation in between this type of project is
Yes.
essential. And what about struggles? What was
Right.
like the one moment where you almost said like, no, I'm not doing this. This is not worth it. No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay, so one of the main struggles I had, I think, as I said, when I started in December, I was doing it with my aunt. She was here with me, so it was the two of us doing it. So it was like, it sounds silly, but at some moments you're like, okay, can you pass me this? The oven's on, the mittens, the wok. So having a second person, she actually moved to Barcelona, and I live in a very small town in the center of the country. So it's not like I could be like, okay, a permanent friend to help me with the business. So I said, okay, I'm going to do it. It's just me.
Yeah.
And the first couple weeks, I'm going to say, I hesitated. I was like, can I do this? Because it's like, put the pictures on Instagram, do the social media, try to reach out, try to put nice photos, which, I try my best, but I'm working on it. Make the wraps, follow up with the orders. So that to me, there was a couple weeks that I was like, I don't know
It's a
if I can.
one-woman show.
Exactly. But eventually, I said, if you create a schedule, if you work around it, like I mostly do it by orders. So I said, okay, I'm going to have a day that I do cuttings of fabrics. That's just what I do one day. Second day is just I prepare the materials. Third day, I bake them per se. And then I work on the orders. So there's a day for shipment. And in that sense, if you come to certain order, you can do it. I mean, I do encourage everyone out there who is considering starting a business, even if it's just you, do seek out for advice.
Yeah.
The moral support is very important. I'm very grateful I have my partner who, he would come up and be like, is there anything I can do? And I would be like, yes, please.
Oh, that's sweet.
So, call for help when you need it. I also, all the business part of it, I had to get an accountant. I had to try to sort out how it'll work to do, the payments, the IRS, the bank account. How do you do? I didn't even have MBWay, and I have to figure that out. So call out for help. That was and know your limitations. I think I knew the math part, the accountant. I need someone to help, and I reach out for that. So I think
Yeah.
that's something it's important to acknowledge.
Yeah,
How
that's
much you
super
can.
important not to overstretch yourself, because then the things that you can do, you won't be doing it because you'll be struggling with something that is outside your comfort zone or your skill
Correct.
set. Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Well, this is amazing. Thank you so much for
Oh, you're
sharing
welcome.
all of this with us. I don't know if you want to leave any last word of advice for newcomers, people who have like one idea for a small business and maybe they're hesitant on, shall I do this, shall I not do this?
Yes. Well, one of the things I think I'm one of those positive person who says go give it a try. Like the worst you can do is that you spend some time, you made think of the investment you're willing to make and see if it's for you. If not, at least you tried it, and if it works, it's going to be so rewarding, to be honest, to have that feeling. Is not I'm not going to say it's a monetary reward. It's is the feeling of doing something that you believe in, that people can one sort of learn. I don't want to preach, I don't want to teach people, but if I can show them a new
Yeah.
thing for them to do towards a more sustainable or more circular economy, why not? So give it a try. I always say give it a try. If it doesn't work, well, you tried it.
You
And
learned something.
oh my. And you learn your limitations too, which is
Yeah.
important, like that's a very important thing to do. And the second thing is, nowadays there is so much available out there for us to learn of how we need to unlearn what we know. That for me has been the biggest learning like curve of this whole year, the pandemics, the changes. It was, I come from a Latin society. I'm from Venezuela originally, where even recycling was not part of, the world. And so single use, the more you have, it shows more wealth, which I'm so against. I don't believe in that. Like, not that if you want to have, it's fine. Just be conscious of what you have, what you do with it, especially like what all the circular economy that you've been talking and showing us about as well is how to go into it, to replan, to rethink, to redesign. So there's a lot out in the world out there, and there's books, there's webinars. I've attended so many webinars online, which I'm so grateful for, because organizations are putting the effort and the time to do so. So let's take advantage of that. And there is one book that I do recommend to most people if they can get their hands on, which is, besides the circular economy, is the donut economics. This is it's an economist basically who is showing us that the economy, besides being a single line circle, it has two realms, right? The internal one is the social. So it's where we talk about ethnics and gender and human rights. And the outer layer is the natural resources we have. So where we have to stand in the middle, right? In the middle is where, we make sure we continue. We don't go through a sixth extinction, as terrible as it sounds. So I do recommend learning about donut economics, because it's a new way to think for the 21st century economy.
Yeah, and it's super important. We were actually talking about that in another podcast, that we need to transition to a circular economy, but it needs to be a just transition socially, because there are minorities and some groups that are being much more affected by climate change, and that will be much more affected by this. So it needs to be just, and socially we need to be concerned about this as well.
Correct.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. We're going to share all of your links, but basically it's _Abelha _Verde, your Instagram, and I guess that from there you can get all the information. Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's been my pleasure.
And if you want to reach out to Cristina and get her beeswax wraps, then please do. They look amazing. I like the fact that they're unique. Unique patterns.
You can pick random fabrics that they will keep changing. So
I think you should also develop the part where people will send you their old fabrics, and you'll make them.
That's a wonderful idea, because that's very unique. So yeah, actually, if you're watching this and that's already something you want to do, I'm in. Just reach out, tell me. Cool. I have this old T-shirt or blanket that I love and I want to keep it. And I'll do it. You send it to me and I'll make them into wraps.
Perfect. Yes. Okay, thank you, everyone. Oh, sorry, cut you off.
No, I was going to say that also, like, it's not only, I really love the idea of community. So it's not, you don't need to reach only if you want to get wraps. Just if you have questions, if you want to share more projects, that I like to use this Instagram also as a platform to connect. So feel free to do that as well if you feel like it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll be seeing you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Bye-bye.